What does narcissistic behaviour look like? It's a serious social and psychological problem. It's abuse of power and control and belittlement of others. Are you in this? Have you ever experienced this? This impairs a person's psychological ability either in work or school or social settings or family. The narcissist has a lack of empathy for the other person, but huge empathy for themselves. Unlike the codependent, who has no empathy for themselves and too much for others. Would that be familiar to you? Christine Louis de Canonville, who's written a lot on narcissism, sees narcissism as being on a spectrum. She sees healthy narcissism being the first, unhealthy narcissism next on the spectrum, malignant narcissism being the third, and psychopathy being the fourth. I would suggest putting codependency on the spectrum too, maybe below healthy narcissism. It's what I encourage my codependent clients to aim towards, to move from codependency to healthy narcissism. So it's healthy to have healthy narcissism. And I believe that we can work with even unhealthy narcissism. But malignant narcissism comes in the form of psychological abuse, physical abuse, financial abuse, and sexual abuse. For the purposes of this discussion, I would like to focus on the malignant narcissist, whose behaviour can be overt, right, which means it can be clearly seen. It can be violent or physical in nature, or covert, which is more hidden. It'd be emotional abuse, where the person loses their voice or their choice and is constantly criticised, where you must act to their script. They can be abusive or mean financially or abusive sexually. So what does the behaviour of the narcissist look like? In my experience, just as many men and children come suffering from narcissistic abuse as women. So mothers and women in the workplace can behave narcissistically as much as men. The narcissist victim eventually feels worthless, confused, they lose their voice, and they feel anxious. The narcissist transfers the depression and anxiety onto their prey, whereupon they get stronger and stronger while their victim's depression grows. This can happen in intimate relationships or in the family of origin, in organisations, or with so-called friendships. Sadly, too often people stand by and watch as this overt behaviour or covert behaviour happens before their very eyes. I'm just thinking of an example of a client who came to me about 4 weeks ago, had been doing well and suddenly had actually deteriorated. He didn't know why, he just thought it was himself. And when we explored it, he realised that his physical appearance had been criticised by his friends in front of everybody, and he hadn't noticed it. I asked him, did any of his friends speak up for him? And he said no. And it was quite horrific what was said. So it just reminded me that yet again, people do stand by and just watch people being abused before their very eyes, and they normalise it by allowing it to happen. I'm just thinking of another lady who also was abused in front of other people. Sitting in a canteen, came in and asked a lady a question, and the lady roared her in front of everybody, and nobody said anything, just tolerated it. And this lady is bullying a lot of people in the organisation. That lady was bullied out of the company, and she is so destabilised, she's needing a lot of help. So narcissism is really tolerated in a lot of places. So it's normalised, and this unacceptable behaviour, it causes more confusion to the victim. The codependent is then conditioned to accept this behaviour, And because maybe very often these people have suffered narcissistic abuse in their childhood, so they don't realize that it's unacceptable in their adulthood, which is sad. And it's only until maybe they go to a therapist who really understands narcissism, and maybe has experienced narcissism themselves, but really understands it. And a lot of people don't get it, that they can actually work through and start to see what is actually happening. I would encourage people to speak up. Even the people who stand by are colluding with it. And they're, maybe co-narcissists if you stand by and collude with it and not allow narcissists to continue to feed off people. Are we nourishing these narcissists and making them stronger in our silence? Actually, one lady who, this is the honest truth, she ended up in bed for 4 years while she was being bullied in the workplace. She left that workplace and went to another workplace. And that narcissist made sure that she lost her job in the next workplace. And others, lots of others knew that this was happening. They heard it through their headphones, and she could not get out of bed for 4 years. It left her that unwell. She's doing okay now, but she's still suffering from the trauma of it. And what we mean is that narcissists suffer from complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So trauma is maybe one event, 2 events, but complex post-traumatic stress disorder is when there are a number of events where they're constantly in a war zone, right? The war zone is 24/7. The narcissist doesn't tend to see us as separate to them, or separate people with our own thoughts and feelings. They see their children and you as an extension of them. They distort reality and then they place all blame and responsibility on you, where you end up doubting your own reality and become destabilized. They strategically destabilize by having the possibility of a third person in the relationship brought in, even if it's imaginary or real. This causes kind of a trauma bonding. Actually, again, I have 2 people this week where that was happening. That way then they create a triangle which makes you more attached to them. And it is a strategy of theirs. So be aware if you're with somebody who is doing this. Charming. They love bomb you to get you back. So be aware that they may promise you all the things that you've always wanted to get you back, but suddenly then you don't get those things. They lie. They have no boundaries, and they tell you that you're imagining things. Yeah. So they'll they'll make you doubt what you're actually really experiencing in reality and tell you that your reality isn't true. They're rarely apologetic or remorseful or guilty, and they believe you caused their negative feelings, so they blame you for their negative feelings. So be aware when you're in the company of people that do this. They can't make sense of emotional reasoning, so don't expect them to, so don't try to reason with them. It just is a waste of your energy and headspace.